in the vain hope that some people that aren't joining us will actually watch this video. Probably not, but hey, I can dream, right? Here's the rubric. You need that. It's got 6 points on it. We talked about point 1. We got to talk about points 2 through 6. Here is your sample essay. This is what you're going to write. I just posted it in classwork as well. This will be due a week from Friday. So by the end of the day, next Friday, so 8 days from now. However, I'm going to talk about this example throughout the period. You should go ahead and take notes on it. That makes your essay writing easier. And then lastly, the packet that gives you an explanation of how to write the essay. I'm going to show my screen in just a minute to talk about the thesis statement that comes directly from here. So if you want to follow along, great. But if you can't, for whatever reason, you're on a phone, whatever, I am going to share my screen so you can see it at that time. All right? So when we leave class today, you will be able to at least, hopefully, understand the broad strokes of what it takes to write a long essay question. And then you're going to try to write one on your own over the next 8 days. It will probably be ugly. It's a 2 out of 2 participation grade. I expect the first one to be pretty rough. It's fine. It's like the first time you tried to swim and they had to put floaties on you, and first time you try to ride a bike, whatever. It's not easy. First time you try to drive a car, you're gonna make some mistakes. So a lot of people, if they can, take you to like an empty parking lot, so you can't hurt anything. All right, same kind of thing. It'll be fine. We will get better, and by the end of this year, when you've written 10, 12 of these essays, you're gonna be in good shape to be successful. All right. It's like anything else, it takes time, it takes practice. So I'm going to put on my whiteboard. We talked about the context of an essay, the background. That is how we start. Context tells us about the same subject, the same time, same subject, same place, previous time period. So for a period 1 essay, that is going to be something from period 0. Since your question is about the Silk Roads and the Indian Ocean trade routes, you could choose to tell me about some sort of period 0 trade. For example, the simplest answer, does the Silk Road exist before 1200 CE? If so, can you compare or contrast it to what is happening in the year 1200 or after the year 1200? Does the Indian Ocean trade routes exist? If it does, that can be your point of comparison. That would be the easiest thing to do. The same trade route, the same places, a previous time period, what was it like? Was it similar? Was it different? That kind of thing. The second thing you're going to do is write a thesis statement. We mentioned this at the end of class the other day, and we have a formula, X, A, B, Y. Let's explain what those 4 letters mean. And I will use this chance to remind you that in AP US history next year, whether you have Mr. McDonald or whether you have Mrs. Irvin, you will use the exact same formula. If you have a friend who has Mr. Pack this year or Mr. Witt, you can study and prepare for essays with them because they're using the exact same formula. So if your best friend has Mr. Pack, y'all can still prepare together for an essay because you're going to learn the same thing. And in fact, Mr. Pack and I are going over this formula so he can use it with his students, because this is what all of us use in AP World, AP US, and AP Euro. And since Mr. Pack is new to us, we're making sure he knows that as well. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So let's talk about what this means. You are comparing and contrasting in the example I've given you. The same is also true for change continuity, but we'll get to that later. We'll practice all the formats, trust me. But right now we're focusing on compare and contrast because that's what I've given you. You decide whether you think the 2 items in question are more similar or more different. That's a decision you make. There is no right answer. Either they are more similar or they are more different could be acceptable depending on what facts you use and how you can explain it. So right now, let me be very clear. You do not need to worry, am I writing the right answer? There is no right answer. Either one can work, depends on how you argue it. That's one of the good things about history class. There's not an answer you have to memorize. If you know the format, if you know the content, you can answer any way you want to as long as you justify it. Okay? So this is not a, oh my gosh, I got to memorize all these facts. Not really. Not really. Okay? X is it's one example. That's supposed to be a 1. Whoa, that's terrible. It is the lesser or counter argument. The lesser or counter argument. If you believe the Silk Roads and the Indian Oceans are more different, then your X example will be how they are similar. Or if you believe they are more similar, then your X example will be one reason why they are different. Either way works. There's no preference either way for compare and contrast. Process that. Think about it. Do you have any questions about that concept?
So it's basically just like the opposite of the argument you're trying to make?
Yes.
Okay.
And Ethan, what we're trying to do, and all of you, what we're trying to do, is we are introducing complexity. This is one of the points in the rubric I'll get to later. But basically, here is the philosophy of it. History is complex. It is very few times that we truly know the right answer. Most of history is based on documentation that is incomplete. For most of history, who could read and write? Most of us? See some head nod? No. It was the elite. It was the rich. It was the powerful. It was men. So for most of history, when we look at an event, we don't have the perspective of women. We don't have the perspective of average people. We don't have, in terms of their economic opportunity, we don't have the perspective of minorities often. We don't have the perspective of the poor. We don't have the perspective of young people. We have rich, old, powerful people, or the people that work for them. So is that a true understanding of all of the perspectives in a historical situation? No, which is why we can argue about it, because we don't truly know and we probably never will. I'll give you a current example. We had a presidential debate 2 nights ago. I don't know if you watched it or if you didn't. It was interesting. As someone who has been a debater, I was a state champion in high school. I'm pretty good at debate. I have coached it. I have taught it. Ideally, in the spring, at some point, we can debate in this class. I hope we can, in the way I normally would, because it's a huge part of what I like you all to do. I think it's an important life skill. If you all had behaved in such a manner, you would have been disciplined by me, and I would have shut you down pretty quickly. However, and I think we can, in general, the general consensus was the debate was a mess. Now, it depends on which news source you looked at for how much of a mess and whose fault it was. Certain channels or websites, it's this one's fault. Certain channels or websites, it's that one's fault. Certain channels and websites, it's everybody's fault. So there's always a perspective that informs your opinion. We can call this a bias, B-I-A-S. So because there is inherently bias in human opinion, every single one of us has background information that informs our opinion. Is that right? Where you grow up, your family, your belief system you're raised in, your, the flexibility of your family situation in terms of you coming up with your own opinions, or if the emphasis is on kind of this is what we believe in this household. I'm not saying either one's right or wrong in any of those cases, just all those things inform you who you are and what you believe. And so when we study history, that means there's a lot of possible answers. So you are introducing the fact that even though you have a major opinion in this matter, there could be other opinions. That's what X is. X is saying there's other ways we can look at this. And the hope of doing this is it might get you that complexity point that comes later in the rubric, because you're acknowledging that there's not always a limited, straightforward answer. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what it is. Okay? It'll make more sense when you start to do it. Now, for my X example, as well as the other examples, do I need to be specific in the examples I give in my thesis? You got 2 options. I'm seeing some nods. What do you think? Do I need to be specific? Yes or no? All right. I'm seeing some nods. The nods are correct. Yes, you need to be specific. Please write that down. Your examples need to be specific. So if you believe these 2 trade routes are more different, then you need to give a specific example of your X, which would be a similarity. So, both the Silk Roads and Indian Ocean trade routes connect diverse cultures, such as those in India with those in the Middle East. The merchants trade goods and services, but also spread cultural beliefs such as Buddhism, which originates in India and spreads both east and west due to the Silk Roads and the Indian Ocean. Now, that was pretty specific. What I just did, though, was explain. Do you think you want your thesis statement to have that much explanation for just one part? That was too much. What I just said would be better later on in the essay, in the body. You just want to say in the thesis, here's a specific, you don't explain it. So a similarity they both have is that they allow people to spread religions such as Buddhism in time period 1. That's it. And then in the body of your essay, you will explain that. How it happened, why it happened, the impact of it happening, whatever you're going to get to. Does that make sense? So thesis is specific example, but no explanation, because kiddos, a thesis is a summary. A thesis is the trailer for the movie. If you give away too much of the movie in the trailer, why should I see the movie when I can, go to YouTube and watch the trailer and see all the cool stuff in 3 minutes for free? And we've all seen movies where you're like, ooh, this looks cool. And then you realize they literally put everything cool in an hour and a half movie in a 3-minute trailer. That's kind of the game. That's what you want people to do, is spend their money on stuff, even if you're like, boy, this movie is crap. But you try to make it seem like it's cool because you put the best stuff in the trailer. That's your thesis. You're putting the best stuff you got, and then you'll explain it later. So that is X, a lesser or counter argument to your main idea. Everybody good? A and B are 2 examples. That's why it's 2 letters. That's supposed to be X, sorry. Whoop. Main arguments. I'm just going to put args. I've discovered the hardest letter for me to write with this is an S. I don't know why, but I always don't finish the S's, which normally I would do. So these are your 2 main arguments. So if you believe, again, that these 2 trade routes are primarily different, then you are going to give us 2 examples of those differences in the thesis. Now, let me be very clear. A difference requires you to give examples on both sides. A difference is not, the Silk Road does this, period. I'm supposed to figure out the other side. Well, Mr. Rich, if there's a difference, then obviously no, I don't want to hear the word obviously from you. If it's so obvious, say it yourself. There is no fill in the blank. There is no where's Waldo. You are a student. You get credit for what you can prove, not for what is so easy you leave out. Does that make sense? I need you to say it, not assume that I know it. You are writing these essays like your reader is like 6 years old. And if you've ever babysat little kids, you know what they do. All right, we're going to have lunch now. Why? Because it's lunchtime and you're probably hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry, but why are we eating now? Why didn't we eat 20 minutes ago? Oh my God. But that's how little kids learn, is they ask lots of questions. So you try to be patient, but sometimes it's frustrating because they will ask why, depending on the kid's personality, for everything. And I have kids who apologize to me for asking questions. No, don't apologize. That's how we learn. I want you to ask questions. I wish most of you would ask more of them. That's how we learn. Well, Mr. Rich, don't you get annoyed? No. I get annoyed at other stuff, but I don't get annoyed at people asking questions. That's literally my job. If I was coming up with like a paragraph of what a teacher does, part of that would be like answer questions. Literally part of what I do. So I'm happy to answer questions all day long if you got them. So remember that when we come back in person and it's a little easier. I'm down with that. I want you to do that. So you have 2 main arguments. If you want to put them in one sentence, you can. If you want to put them in 2 separate sentences, you can. That's up to you. But this is a paragraph. This is not a sentence. X is its own thing. A and B are its own things. And then finally, Y is its own thing. This is not one giant sentence. Nope. Paragraph. 3 to 4 sentences. Anybody have any questions on what A and B is about? So again, one more time, it doesn't matter which side of the question you choose as A, B, and which side is X. It's up to you. This is why you pre-write and you put down your thoughts and you go, boy, well, I've got 4 examples of similarity and I can only think of one difference. Then I would do A, B as similarity and you know, and then X is a difference. That's what I do. Because either way is fine. Lastly, the letter Y. We know X is an unknown, so A, B is just 2 letters at the beginning of the alphabet. Why would we use the letter Y? What do you think happens in the Y statement? Don't think too hard.
You explain yourself?
Yeah, you explain.
Why?
Yes. Sometimes it is that easy, smart kids. So here's what you're explaining. Why AB is greater than X. I know I'm giving you math, and some of you are like, why is AB greater than X? That's what you're doing. Why are those ideas more significant, more important than the X idea? You had to have a reason. Give us one. So X is a sentence, A and B are 1 or 2 sentences, Y is a sentence. This is 3 to 4 sentences. Specific information, but not thoroughly explained. Y is a short explanation, but you're not going into lots and lots of reasons with lots of detail. You'll do that later. Okay, as you look at my beautiful handwriting before we move on to something else, does this kind of sort of make sense to you? We'll see because you're going to practice it, but for right now, that's the broad strokes of what you're going to use. When you write this essay over the next 8 days, you are welcome to use your notes. I'm happy with that. Eventually, you have to memorize this rubric and just know it by heart. That time is not now. Because on the AP test, obviously, they don't let you use notes or anything. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to switch over to my laptop, and we are going to look at a sample thesis statement. This sample thesis statement is in your packet that I posted on Google Classroom the other day. So if you have access to it, great. If you don't, that's fine because I'm going to share my screen. But you will want to use this document as you write this essay. It will help you. I told you, I don't need you to necessarily write down everything or keep everything. For example, when we looked at like those Islamic cultural pictures, that's great. Do you really need that in May? Not really. It was just to practice a skill. You want your essay rubrics with you all year long. When we come back in person, I will take some things that I've already posted and I will make print copies and give them to you because I want you to have physical copies. But until we get to that point, you need to make sure you can access them digitally. All right, let me share my screen. Let's go to this document. Oh, that's the wrong thing. I didn't mean to share that. Well, Microsoft Word is difficult. There we go. So on page 4, I have a sample essay question, and you see that I have done a Venn diagram. And this is also a compare and contrast. Again, we will learn the other 2 ways of doing this later. Right now, we're starting with compare and contrast. Why?
Would this be an example of a pre-write?
Yes.
All right.
So if you want a Venn diagram, you can. You don't have to, but you can. Now, evaluate the extent, which is how all these essays start, of similarities between the cities of Louisville and Lexington. Oh, boy. In the middle, Louisville and Lexington are both cities in Kentucky. Yep. They're both homes of large public universities, UK U of L, famous horse racing tracks in both, Churchill Downs, Keeneland. They love college basketball, the highest ranking TV ratings every year for the March Madness men's basketball tournament for the NCAA. Differences, some are not very smart, kind of silly. They both have, U of L's colors are red and black, Lexington blue and white. Mr. Rich loves Louisville, he hates Lexington. Oh. We have several major corporations that have headquarters here in Louisville. Lexington has less of those. Our population is more than double their population. And then we have multiple interstate highways that go through and around our city. They have 1. So those are some of the differences. There are many others you could come up with. This is an example of all of your essays. If let's say 25 of you all say similar is more significant than different for these trade routes. I still will probably get 25 different essays because you'll have different facts you choose to write about. That also makes it easy for me to see when people cheat, because if you use the exact same content, it's pretty much unlikely that they're all going to be the same. It's because you all have different notes. You all key on to different things that make sense to you. If all of you have the same info, it's pretty sketchy. So here is my sample thesis statement. I chose to write this like the differences were A, B, and the similarity was X. So I'm starting with my similarity because I believe that's less important. Louisville and Lexington are both cities in Kentucky that share similar passions for horse racing and college basketball. They both love sports. The people in them love sports technically, but you get what I'm saying. However, a great word to use when transitioning from X to AB. However, Louisville's population is more than double the size of Lexington, A. And Louisville is home to more major corporations such as UPS and Humana, than Lexington, B. I used one sentence for both of those examples. Therefore, it's my why statement, despite a mutual love of sports, Louisville and Lexington have discernible differences, that means major or important, such as their population differences and corporations based in these cities. So you can use your XAB as part of your why statement. Now, can you write a better why statement? Probably. This is the simplest way to use a why statement. Just take your XAB and rephrase them. If you can come up with a better reason, that is certainly fine. I'm just showing you the simplest way to do it. Some of you will decide to do better or more thorough in the future, and that is okay. These essays are like going to the store. You have a checklist, you're checking off the items. This is not really a time for creativity. This is not a time for varying your sentence structure. This is not a time for, I'm going to throw in a compound complex. None of that matters. You could write 72 simple sentences and get a perfect score on this, even though that's pretty bad writing. This is not about good writing. This is about getting points to pass this exam. And the essay is where you can improve the most. Some of your first essays will be like 1 or 2 out of 6. And you will get to a 4 or a 5 by the end of the year. You will really improve. Versus many of you, your multiple choice is not going to get that much better. It's either something you're good at or something you're not, and it's really not much I can do to help you. But essay writing, we can all get better. Okay? We all can, especially in this format. And do remember, this is the exact same format as next year. So if you get this down this year, next year get that much easier. Okay? And then under that, you have a Goldilocks scenario. This is an American history prompt, but the guy that made this wrote it, so I didn't change it. He has one that's too weak at the beginning. He has one at the bottom that's too much detail. And he has one that's just right, the Goldilocks in the middle. I would encourage you to read this as you write your essay or before you write your essay to get a sense of what's too much and what's too little. Okay? This is a good resource. Use it. Write down right now to check out this page in your, because we're going to move on and you don't have time right now, but this will really help you. And I guarantee if you don't write it down and you try to write this essay in a week, the day before it's due, you will have forgotten this exists. Make a note to yourself to go check this out on page 4 of this packet.
Do we need to label, like, see how at the bottom, and it did in yours too, it says thesis in like parentheses. Do we need to label them?
You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Let me get this. I was going to do this later, but Ethan, I'll go and do it now. Let me give you an analogy for how you want to write. Does anyone know the slogan of the city of Las Vegas that is seen in commercials? Anybody heard that?
Isn't it like City and Never Sleeps or something like that? Or is that?
No, that's kind of like their historical, yeah, that's their nickname. But about 10 years ago or so, they started a new ad campaign. And it says,
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. In other words, y'all come here and do sketchy things, we won't tell anybody. Right? I mean, that's what it means. They were literally advertising that. Las Vegas is a place where there's casinos everywhere. They're open 24/7. So if you would like to go out and enjoy yourself in an adult fashion with certain substances, beverages, and it's 3 a.m, you can go gamble at that point. Now, casinos love early morning intoxicated gamblers because you're probably going to lose your money. How do they get you to come to their casino and not other casinos? What do they do to get your attention? If you've ever seen Vegas on TV or
Flashy you know, big, flexing.
It's like me. Las Vegas, hopefully without like the, you know, gambling and whatnot, but I am loud. And I'm loud personally. Like when I'm having dinner with friends, I'm loud. Do I amp it up a little bit in class? Yeah. I'm normally like an 8.8. In class, there's days I'm a 12 out of 10. I've had teachers come in my room before thinking, is everything okay? Was there a fight? It's like, yeah, I'm just teaching. Anytime I get a new neighbor in the building, like somebody moves in, you know, a new teacher, I always go over, say hi. I was like, by the way, just so you know, I am really loud. I'm sorry. I also leave my door open. I just don't close my door. So if I am being obnoxious and bothering you, please let me know. But it's probably not going to get any better. So I'm just apologizing in advance. You need to write like Las Vegas. They have flashing neon lights. Because if you are not yourself at 3 a.m, that's how you're going to get their attention. They have dancing fountains. They have fake Eiffel Towers. Come to our casino. Ooh, pretty. You need to write like that. What do I mean? You start your essay if you want. In context, comma. You're letting the reader know that you're using context because you actually say the word. You can do what Ethan just asked about. Can I put parentheses at the end of my things? Yeah. Hello, teacher. This is my thesis. Give me credit, please. And I think I've mentioned this already. If I haven't, I'm going to say it again, or I'm going to say it for the first time. AP tests are graded. You get one question, one essay, and you grade that hundreds and hundreds of times over a week. The same one over and over and over. I only graded one time because I have a summer job and I can't do it most years. I graded in 2009. I graded the same essay 845 times. I have never given that essay again because if I see it again, I'll start having nightmares. Ordinarily, you grade at a national location. Everybody flies there. You're in a hotel, conference room, and people do this every summer. So they get to make friends with people from all over the country, and as soon as 5 o'clock hits, they go out and have a good time. They go have dinner, they go socialize, whatever. This year, they've already announced that while we are taking our test at school in person with paper and pencil and whatever, the reading will still be virtual because they don't want to make a commitment for hotel rooms and stuff. And maybe we're not ready then, who knows? So it's still virtual reading. So everyone's grading this year at home with their kids, with their dog, with the when's lunch, and they're trying to grade your essay. So they're going to be distracted. They're going to be bored. The normal thing that makes them happy to go to the reading is to see their friends from all over the country they've been grading with for 10 years ain't going to happen again. So that means that you especially need to get their attention. You can and should label things when you do it. You can underline certain words so they get it. You can and should use the language of the question. A comparison between the Silk Road. Underline comparison. A difference. This is not where's Waldo and Mr. Rich has to figure it out. You tell me. Because here's what will happen. I will get back essays. One of you will realize that you did something and I missed it. I missed it. You'll come to me and say, hey, Mr. Rich, I actually think I did this. Will you check it again? Sure. I check it and go, oh, you're exactly right. I missed that. I fix it. You get the point back. Your grade goes up. Can any of that happen on the AP test? No. After the first day of the grading, when they kind of teach you what to do and they give you somebody to help you who's experienced, guess how many people read most essays for the AP reading? Guess how many times they read it? Now, they're teachers and they're trying to help you, so don't get paranoid about this. But when you're grading 800 of the same thing over a week, you will make mistakes. You will. It is much harder to make a mistake when you're saying difference, similarity, thesis, context. You're flashing neon lights like in Las Vegas, getting their attention. It's like I tell my kids when I take students to Europe. People get their, stuff stolen every day in big cities around the world. You're obviously a tourist. They know you're not from here. They assume you're dumb. And I hate that anyone gets their stuff stolen. That is a terrible thing. But I'd rather it be them instead of you. So we say, for example, no wallets in your back pocket. They can take stuff out of your back pocket you will never even know, because that's how those people eat, and they're good at it. If you put stuff in the front of you, if someone touches you in the front of your person around your waist, you will notice it. So nothing in the back pocket. And I see kids with their phones in their back pocket. I've actually taken a kid's phone out of their back pocket and handed it to them. They didn't even notice it. And I'm not a professional. It's not hard, especially when 3/4 of it's sticking out of your pocket. So we do that to try to, like, kids, please, I don't want you to get your stuff stolen. I don't want you to be the one that they mess up your grade. So be frank, be obvious, be that flashing neon sign. Everybody understand me? Okay? All right. Now, let's finish the rest of the rubric because we've done 2 parts. We got 4 more. The next 4 are much faster. If you're thinking, boy, we don't have time, we'll be doing this for 6 months. The thesis is the most important thing. When you get the thesis, the rest of it tends to work. Okay? All right. So let me go back to my whiteboard here. So we know paragraph 1 is context and thesis. We now have a sense of what that means. Paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4. Paragraph 2, you take your X idea, you expand upon it, you explain it. A paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences. Well, Mr. Rich, I can't explain that idea. Then why are you using it in your thesis? If you can't explain it, that's not going to work. This is why we pre-write. We think in advance about this stuff. Your 3rd paragraph is the A idea, expanded upon, explained, examples given. Your 4th paragraph is your B idea, expanded upon, explained. You are taking the exact same ideas from the thesis and repeating them and explaining them. I can tell an essay is going to be bad when I start reading your 2nd paragraph and it says a different idea. No, you're not using different ideas. The ideas from your thesis are the ideas in the body of your essay. Nothing different. 3 ideas total. This is also why I've told you, when you take notes, the most examples you need of anything is 2. You don't need 5 examples of anything. Why are you taking notes on a 6th example of something? You will never be asked. You've already seen a short answer has 3 parts. And the most you're asked to give examples of anything is sometimes it may say, give 2 examples of one thing. That's short answer. You've now seen LEQ. The most you have to give examples of anything is 2. You don't need more than 2 examples of anything. So one way to make your notes shorter and better, stop writing down 3rd and 4th examples. It doesn't help. It's a waste of your time. I'm telling you to do less work. Listen to me. But what if I want you to get a 5. I want you to pass. I'm telling you things that will work. Trust me. Again, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. I know what I'm doing. My kids do well. Take my advice. It'll make your work go faster and you'll be smarter for it. Okay? Better prepared. So X is that lesser idea. A is the first main idea. B is the first main idea. What do I do in these paragraphs, Mr. Rich? You're doing 2 things. So here you are giving facts. Boy, that's a rough T there. Whew. And you are doing the why. Let me explain that. If you look on the rubric, you have context, you have thesis on the 2nd row, 3rd row is evidence. The left box under evidence is provide specific examples of evidence. Give me facts. Tell me things that are true. If you are struggling to write this essay, you don't know how they compare. You can at least get the fact point because you can tell me the Silk Road is a trade route that ran approximately from China through Central Asia to the Middle East in time period 1. That's like 3 facts in that sentence. If you don't know how Hinduism and Buddhism compare and contrast, tell me what Hindus believe, tell me what Buddhists believe. I can at least give you the fact point. If you can't put them together, you can at least talk about them separately and at least get a 1. So your worst case scenario, kiddos, is a 1 out of 6. I should never get an essay where you get a 0. A 0 means you didn't know anything. Even if you can't compare and contrast or do cause and effect or whatever, you should still be able to tell me facts. And Mr. Rich, a 1 out of 6 isn't good. Guys, the national average on this essay most years, out of 140,000 people, give or take. Oh, no, that's AP Euro. Your test is almost 300,000 now. 300,000 people. 1.9 to 2.2 is the average most years, somewhere in that range. So first of all, if you get a 4, you're doubling the average. That's good. Because everything's curved. The College Board will tell you they don't curve. They're liars. They curve. And if you beat the curve, your 95 turns into 114. Right? Your 80 turns into a 91. Most years, to get a 5, you need between 70 and 75% of the points. Most years, to get a 3 to pass, you need between 38 and 43% of the points. A 40% is usually a failing grade. On the AP test and AP World, pass. Why? Because of the curve. Because most people suck. And you will take advantage of that, and that will help you. The states of Florida and Texas pay schools per the number of kids that take an AP test. They get a bonus. So if you get a bonus for more kids taking an AP test, guess what you're going to do? Have more kids take AP tests, which means some of them will not be prepared. That's to your advantage. There are schools in Jefferson County, and I won't say any names, especially because I'm recording, that I know the teacher doesn't teach part of the exam because, quote, they don't like it. I am on numerous message boards, Facebook, various platforms, where there's like teachers that do this, ask questions, and you try to help the new ones. There are people in May who will be like, so how do the kids write an LEQ? And the test is in a week. You will crush those people because you're learning this now, and we will write 10 of these this year. And you're competing against some kids that will not even know the rubric when they walk in the room to take their test. Good for you, bad for them. So we're glad that those people exist. I hate it for them, but at the same time, it makes your job easier because it lowers the standard for you to pass, which is not a bad thing. So you need facts about the topic at hand. The second part, on the right-hand side of the third line down in the rubric, basically says you need to support an argument. So you're going to support your thesis statement. If you said X is less important, it is not as significant, at the end of that paragraph, you're going to tell me why that is true. Henceforth, me writing down the letter Y. Why is X less important than A or B? Tell me in a sentence or two. Does that make sense? Then in the A paragraph, at the end of that, you're going to tell me why is A more important than X? You're going to do the reverse. Instead of saying why it's worse, you're going to say why it's better. Why is this similarity more significant than the difference? And you're going to explain, comma, because, ... And then for paragraph 4, letter B, you're going to again explain why B is more important than X. So some people want to say, oh, the 5th paragraph is Y. No. Y belongs in paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. You write facts, you explain why. You write facts, you explain why. You write facts, you explain why. You have to do it for all 3. Here's what makes it tough. If you do it for 2 and not the 3rd, you don't get the point. Got to do it all 3 times. So this is one of those, I'm nervous and in a hurry, I forget. Once you get good at it, it's not hard. You made this decision to structure your essay for a reason. Write down that reason. Okay? And you'll get to do an example, and we'll see how it goes, and I'll give you feedback, and we'll go from there. All right? Does that make sense? We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm on the home stretch here. Your bottom row of the rubric, points 5 and 6, the bottom left, use historical reasoning to frame it up. You're answering the question. You're giving an example of a comparison. You're giving an example of a contrast. You've done that in paragraph 2, 3, and 4. Usually if you get the fact point, you also get that first analysis and reasoning point. Because you're telling me facts, and then you're telling me how they are similar to the other trade route, or how they are different to the other trade route, or the other empire, or the other religion, whatever the question may be.
Could you repeat that for number 5?
Yeah, you are answering the question. So since this question is, how similar are they? You're telling me they are or aren't similar because of this idea. So you're telling me here's a difference. Here are similarities. I think the similarities are more important because blah, 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 blah. So if you're just literally answering the question. And again, you need 3 examples, 2 of one, 1 of the other. If you only do 1 and 1, you don't get this point. We'll talk about time management later, but sometimes this is a time management issue. You try to do everything, whereas at some point, if you're not fast enough or good enough to get all these points, and most of us aren't, you stop doing the things you're bad at and try to finish all the things you're good at to get the best score. The 6th and final point talks about a variety of stuff. It's about complexity. I mentioned this earlier. One of the ways we're trying to get this complex point is by discussing a counter argument with our own main idea. We understand that historical analysis is hard. There's lots of different perspectives. Here are 2, but I think this one is better than the other one. Imagine this if you're asking your family members for something that you want. Your mom's tough. She doesn't take crap excuses. So you come in and say, hey, Mom, I know you were mad at me last week because my room was a mess and I didn't do my chores and you had to get on me to do that. And I know that right now that you're trying to work from home and do all kinds of stuff and take care of all of us and you have a lot of stress in your life and I should reduce that stress by doing my chores without having to be asked. You're right. But look at my room now. It's clean. Look at whatever your chores are. I already did them. You didn't have to tell me. I learned my lesson. So can I insert whatever you want? So you are used to coming up with counterexamples. Last week I was crap, and here's why, and you're right. But here's why I'm better now, so let me do what I want. You do that all the time, right? Because if you ignore the thing that got you in trouble last week, that's not going to go well. Like I went after one of my students today because I was talking about being on time, and the kid put in the chat, I was only 2 minutes late with my quiz. In the grand scheme of life, 2 minutes late is not a big deal. But when you make an excuse and say it's okay because it was just 15 minutes later, I finished. So that kind of stuff doesn't go with me. We all make mistakes, but don't make excuses for those mistakes or try to justify those. Oh, no. Bad. So anyway, your goal is to try to point out that this is complex. Now, this is a very difficult point to get. 2 years ago, because last year we didn't have the LEQ on the AP test. 2 years ago, less than 5% of students got this point. Sometimes we call it the unicorn point because it's hard to find. Or sometimes it doesn't exist. So here's what I want you to do for your 5th paragraph, if you can. If you can't do this yet, I'm okay with it. We'll work on it later in the year. You're going to do what's called post-context. Now, we know what context is. Same subject, same time, same subject, same place, previous time. What do we think, therefore, post-context might be? With the prefix post.
After whatever you're talking about.
Good job, Lauren. So same subject. Same place. Next time. Now, this is hard for most of the year for an obvious reason. We haven't studied period 2 yet. So most of you can't tell me about trade in Asia in period 2 because we haven't gotten that far. So this is something you probably won't even be able to attempt, most of you, until we get to March and April and we've covered it all and we're reviewing content. But this is a paragraph. Also note this, so it should be about trade routes because that's what the question's about. It should be the same place. You should not tell me in the Americas we have evidence that the Aztecs and the Incas were trading. The question's not about the Americas. The question is about the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean. That's Africa. That's Asia. Maybe you could sneak in a little bit of Europe and we might let you, but it's definitely not the Americas because the Indian Ocean doesn't touch the Americas. Neither does the Silk Road. So it's the same place too. Same subject, same place, next time. You will have, when we start doing this for real, 40 minutes, 40. What I'm going to ask you to do is by next Friday, and I've already posted it, make a Google Doc, type up your answer. I want a minimum of 4 paragraphs. I want 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you don't get to 5, either out of you run out of time and you want to try to be honest about it, or you're like, I don't know what's happening in period 2. Now, since this is practice, if you want to look up in your textbook or online what happens in Asian trade in period 2, 1450 to 1750, I'm okay with that, but you don't have to. So I will give you 2 out of 2, A for effort, 100%, if you turn this in by next Friday with the first 4 paragraphs attempted. And if you want to use your notes, you want to use your rubric, you want to take more than 40 minutes, all of that for the first time is fine.
Mr. Reed.
Yeah, one more sentence and I'll get to Ethan. Eventually, we want to get to 40 minutes in class. That's it. But for right now, we can be a little flexible. Yes, Ethan.
So you said you give us like a 2 out of 2 just by doing it, but like, will you tell us like?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, as I posted in Classroom, it's a 6-point rubric. So I'm putting the rubric in Classroom, and then I will tell you yes or no, and I will type in there, which is why I want this done in Docs and not handwritten and uploaded, unless you just can't, because I can't put comments on a handwritten uploaded document. The only thing I like about online school better than regular school, I actually kind of like this for essay writing. The problem is when we're in person, I have to have you handwrite it because the AP test is going to be handwritten. So we're not going to, it's like you're a football player and you practice on a basketball court. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So to me, it's the same kind of thing. But I do like the fact that I can comment and give you direct feedback much faster than I can in a non-digital situation. Or I can have the same comments copied and I can paste them because y'all are going to screw up in the same ways and I kind of already know what they are. But this is one of those things in life. This won't be hard for many of you the 5th or 6th time. Some of you, it might take 10 times. Some of you, it might not be this year. You never get it this year, but next year in A+, you do. So I'm asking you to be patient. I'm asking you to do the things I've asked you to do. Even though you can use your notes and you can take more than 40 minutes, do not talk to a friend about this. This is an individual journey. Much like Buddhism or Taoism, this is an individual path. I need you to walk down by yourself, okay? And if you run into a brick wall, I will come along and pick you up and help you. But let me do that, not your friend, because what usually happens is 2 kids that don't know what they're doing make it worse together. Now, once we get to the spring, and some of you guys have shown you know what you're doing, I'm much more happy at that point to have one of you help each other, because then one of you knows what you're doing and can help somebody else. Right now, you're all blind, and that's not going to help anybody. Okay? So that's my advice. As always, do what you want, but when you mess up, I'm going to say I told you so, because I've seen this story before. Many, many, many times. Okay? Again, I think you guys are my like 52nd section of AP World I've taught in my career. So I've seen this a lot. I've been there. I've had over 2,000 kids in this class. I can tell you pretty much what you're going to do before you do it. So it doesn't mean I'm always right, because sometimes I'm wrong. But in general, when I tell you something, it's because of my experience and because I've seen it before, and I've had and I talk to my kids. Y'all tell me what helps you, and then it helps me help the next group. I learned a lot about how to teach this stuff online from last spring. I'm still not great at it. I hope I'm not doing it long enough to get great at it, but I feel like I'm doing a lot better job this fall than I did last spring. Because last spring we were all like, well, we just had to figure it out on the fly. At least this year I had some time to prepare. So that is where we are. I'm going to close out my whiteboard. I'm going to close out my